There are several significant challenges of scaling a work-based learning program in a school district. You not only have to find the right community partners that are interested in engaging with your students, but also match that to student interests. And part of it is you have to do all of those at the same time. Not only are you trying to encourage students to take that step to engage in these authentic experiences that we know lead to significant post-secondary outcomes in persistence and completion when they leave our schools in post-secondary, as well as higher economic mobility. So how do you do that at scale that you're not only doing one student at a time? And so you have to create some efficiencies in order to get that to the point that you're actually reaching all the students that could benefit the greatest amount from the experience. So one of the biggest challenges that we had in going to scale is simply background checks. You've got to ensure and guarantee the safety and security of your students. So it's not enough to have a conversation with the individual, and it's not enough to make sure there's a match, but you have to make sure that the adults that are working with your students clear your background checks and do that in a way that's efficient and effective before you place a student on site. You have to have a way to also manage those relationships, so when you actually engage and recruit an employer, how do you continue that communication with that employer in a way that is to some extent automated, because you've got to spend your time finding the next employer for the next student and be able to expand those experiences? And how do you track all of those individuals when you're trying to do this at scale that you've made connections with and that have said, well, I'm willing to come to speak to a class, but I'm not yet willing to host a student at my work site, and be able to work those relationships much like businesses work their customers, so that you can get a student placed there at your local corporate partner or village government or any one of the number of small to mid-sized businesses in your community. Those challenges really can be overcome, but you have to do it in a way that creates efficiencies, that you don't allow those barriers of the paperwork and facilitating screenings and background checks and student interviews stop you from being able to move forward. So another barrier is actually knowing where your students are, what are the experiences that are happening, and doing that in a manner that gives you accurate information. And many times while I was doing this work, we had individuals just hand counting experiences and trying to create spreadsheets and do things by hand. Many times the information wasn't accurate that I was receiving. I was not able to, when we were initially going to scale, prior to a solution, have a snapshot of the district and if all of my students were actually engaging in those experiences. What a solution like this allows you to do is to be able to look at it from an equity lens and ensure that the students that you've targeted that need this the most are actually receiving access to these experiences, which is essential.